Welcome to Marin Voices and Views. With Lawrence A. Strick, I'm Peter B. Collins. Coming up in our second segment, real estate attorney Jeff Lerman will join us to talk about Marin homeowners who are underwater and some who are walking away in what's called strategic default. Larry?
Peter, our first guest is Stacey Lawson. Stacey's a Democratic candidate for Congress in the new district that hugs the coast from basically the Golden Gate Bridge to the Oregon border. Stacey grew up in Washington State. She went to Harvard. She has an MBA and a degree in chemical engineering. She co-founded a successful tech startup and later was an executive with Cybele. Stacey co-founded and teaches at the Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology at UC Berkeley. Welcome.
Thank you. Very nice to be with you.
Great. Can I start by asking you a very simple question?
Indeed.
Why do you want to be a congresswoman? What's up?
It's a big undertaking. Why would anyone want to do that? Well, I think that the basis of strong progressive values married with job creation experience is a really, really core set of experience that we need in Congress right now. Most of our electorate thinks that Washington is broken. We have less than 10% approval ratings in our legislative process in Washington. And I think many of us are tired of seeing career track politicians who say they're going to help and they don't. For me, the straw that broke the camel's back was watching the debt ceiling debate earlier this summer and seeing a set of actors who are literally holding our system hostage at the detriment of hundreds of millions of Americans willing to play chicken with our economy, with our credit rating. And to me, it felt like we need to get good actors in there to be providing a counterbalance to that and to be holding a core base of progressive values, taking care of people, making sure we don't leave anyone behind, and doing that by virtue of also having experience creating jobs and economic development and putting people back to work, which I think is a core issue of our day.
Stacey, there are many kinds of Democrats, like conservative blue dogs, moderate business Democrats, and liberals. I guess we're not allowed to say that. Progressives. Mm-hmm. Where do you place yourself on that spectrum?
Well, as I mentioned, I hold a base of strong core progressive values.
Such as?
Such as women's right to choose, marriage equality, equal rights, making sure we're getting out of wars that we shouldn't be fighting, protecting our environment. And I marry that with a job creation track record. So for some folks, they don't know where to put me because they assume that business folks are always to the right. And in fact, I think in many ways, we have ceded these notions of business expertise, of job creation, of fiscal accountability to the Republicans. And I think as Democrats, that is absolutely a mistake, that we need to be holding the line of strong progressive values and be seen as the leaders in terms of putting our economy back on track and putting people back to work.
So you're not a blue dog?
I'm not a blue dog.
Okay.
No.
Well, I think that, thank you for helping us out on that, because as I look at the Democratic Party, I mean, you have Democrats from like a Max Baucus to a liberal congressman from Ohio. Right? I mean, there's a category. And just over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Congress pass a law that permits, I don't know if the president will ever sign it, if you get a gun in a state without gun control, you could put it in your car and move it into the state of California. They're reclassifying, or they're refusing to talk about nutrition in the schools, and are saying ketchup and tomato paste are vegetables. And these Democrats are voting for this stuff. I mean, it's just not party line. And I see there's so much money, there's so many people hanging out in the halls of Congress. If you're there and you know these people from ConAgra or the big gun lobbies coming in to see you, they're only coming for one reason. Do you let them in the door, or do you say, sorry?
Well, I think that part of what's happened in our political sphere is we've gotten so polarized and so divisive that there's no conversation happening. I mean, it used to be that there would be vocal debate across the aisle, and then after hours, folks would be having dinner together, or they'd be having a drink. And now that's not even happening. Literally, people can't be in the same room together. So I think it's absolutely necessary to have leaders who will be in the discussion, and I mean that from the standpoint of trying to find common ground, trying to find common care. that even if there's ideological differences, there may be solutions that actually thread and serve even those ideological divides. And if we don't find those, then we're in big trouble. I mean, you see the direction we're going, the super committee now that's not probably going to find a solution. And I think that our leadership is failing if we're not having a conversation. Now, that being said, in that conversation, there's a set of values that need to be preserved, and in a democracy and in one that serves all people, we can't leave anyone behind. So we need to be talking about things like tax reform and banking reform and closing the gap in disparity in income and wealth in our country that's causing so many problems right now, as well as getting people back to work. So I think it's necessary to hold the line on the values, but constantly be finding the common ground where values that may be disparate can actually serve solutions that serve all.
Now that
tricky,
sounds good,
right?
but this common ground thing is something President Obama has been looking for, and it has completely eluded him. And part of it is that Republicans are not interested in that common ground. They're interested in destroying a Democratic president and making sure he doesn't win a second term.
Yes.
And as you pointed out a moment ago, in the debt ceiling debate last summer, they were willing to risk the future of our economy and you know, the well-being of most Americans for a philosophical point and a cheap political goal.
Yes. And I think we'll continue to see that. So that, I mean, it's disheartening, and to me, it's actually very angering, because it's clear that most of the Republican right is not looking for solutions that are actually ones that serve the people. They've forgotten their job, why they're there. They weren't voted in to dismantle government. They were voted in to find solutions through government mechanisms that serve the people. I think what's missing, quite frankly, is a truth-telling on the Democratic side that invokes the people. And I think we're starting to see that in the Occupy Wall Street movement, that this is like the primal scream of Americans saying the American dream is fast fading. And we don't quite know how to focus our energies or what the solutions are, but we know there's a problem, and we're starting to stand up. So what I think is that we need to be very much truth-telling about where these problems are arising. I mean, it was through Republican administrations that we massively increased our debt, that we went into wars that sort of have put us into significant debt and deficit issues. It was through those kinds of policies that have landed us where we are now. It's not through a Democratic president who inherited that and is trying, quite frankly, very hard to fix those issues. So I think we need to tell the truth, and I think we need to mobilize the American electorate to see the myths that the Republicans are waging in order to have the strength and the sort of the backing behind our political actors that is necessary to get them to the table in a real conversation, as opposed to the kind that you described.
Now, you referenced the Occupy movement, and I think it's raising many important issues, especially about corporate power, corporate influence on elections, and the income and wealth gaps that separate the 1% from the 99%. Now, I'm not trying to label you or do any name calling, but you have a corporate background, and I haven't checked your net worth, so I don't know if you're in the 1% or not. But how do you address the movement and their concerns, given your background?
Oh, I think the movement is spot on. I mean, I think the concerns are real, and that we right now face the largest income and wealth disparity in our country that we have faced since 1928, which, by the way, was the year before the Great Crash and then a prolonged depression. We have seen over the last 10 years an increasing slide, actually the last 30 years, since the early 80s, and that gap increasingly expand, and more wealth and power consolidated in the hands of the top 1%. The solutions there, I think, are several-fold. One, we need, as I mentioned, tax reform, where we're actually bringing back fairness into our tax code. We're letting the Bush tax cuts expire. We're capping deductions for those in the highest tax brackets. We are probably looking at capital gains and making more levels of that, so that we're incenting longer-term holds and less of the churn that you see in the Wall Street style investment. I think we not only need to get Dodd-Frank in there, actually implemented, but we also need to go as far as reinstating Glass-Steagall, because that was one of the major protections out of the Great Depression that we put in place, separating risky investment banking activities from our commercial banking sector. And that's not even really been on the table yet. We have a long ways to go there. So whether someone's in the 1% or the 99%, I think both of those categories need to be looking at how do we have a healthy, thriving democracy where everyone is cared for and we have a stable economy that everyone can prosper and be part of. So I think it's essential that we look at that as one of the most critical issues of our day and are fighting for the changes and the protections that we need to reverse that trend.
By the time this show airs in December, the super committee is going to be done. I don't know what they're going to come up with. I don't think anyone does. What's your thought on this notion of the need, the chronic harping we hear that we've got to cut spending, despite the fact that there's chronic unemployment and people are really, really hurting?
I think we need to cut spending in some places, and we need to increase smart government investment in other places. So right now we have an economy that's dead in the water, really. I mean, with 70% consumer spending making up 70% of our economy, and consumers not spending, we have an economy that is stagnant and, in trouble. So we need to be thinking about smart investment in things like infrastructure, which we're ranked dismally low on world standards, and we can put people back to work right away. So our crumbling roads and bridges and schools and public infrastructure, ports, airports, et cetera, those are places where, light rail, as we know in this district, where we can be creating jobs immediately and stimulating the economy. We need to be supporting small business with access to credit. We need to be investing in new sectors like green technology and clean energy, renewables. At the same and we need to be protecting our social safety net, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, while we also cut things like military spending and administrative overheads and excess and other discretionary spending that is not critical to the social safety net. We need to be looking at revenue as well as cuts. I mean, this is the one thing that blows my mind. Any smart person running a company or a country would never take a mechanism like revenue off the table, right? The area we need to look at is tax reform, both individual and corporate, and we need to be prudent and frugal about our expenses, and there are some key places which are obvious. We're spending too much money in wars we shouldn't be fighting, and we've put ourselves in a situation where our children are going to be paying those debts for a very long time. The other thing I would say quickly about that is healthcare. It's a big issue. It is, if you look at the demographics of our country and the aging population, how many more are going to be drawing upon services like this? The healthcare issue is one of the major areas of expense that we have not solved, and as we see, the Republicans are blocking at almost every turn. But moving towards single payer, allowing the government to negotiate prescription drug prices like they do for the VA and others. There are some very obvious ways where we can bring down our healthcare costs and get right-sized in that area while still providing coverage for all Americans.
Would you support single payer?
I would, yes.
So if we could get you on record on a few issues with some short answers here. Okay. Can you name 3 issues that you disagree with President Obama on?
So I would say, first off, I disagree with his approach to not be using the bully pulpit to speak truth about what's happening in the American landscape, about these issues around income disparity, about acknowledging Occupy Wall Street, about sort of addressing those as core fundamental issues of the day. I think they're just not being spoken enough in our Democratic Party message. Let's see. Secondly, I would say one that comes to mind right away is around the transcontinental, the oil pipeline. The fact that he's deferred that decision, kind of kicked it down the road. I think we should not be supporting our addiction to foreign oil. That we should be investing in new, clean, and green and renewable technologies. So to leave that kind of question looming, as opposed to saying no, we're going to make a commitment to being independent of foreign oil as soon as possible, and we're going to be investing in a big way in things like solar and wind and other renewable sources. We should be doing that now. It should be our next man on the moon project. I'm not sure about
Here comes the Herman Cain moment. Third.
Yeah, number 3.
Or Rick Perry.
That's not fair. That's not fair at all.
I'll stop there, but you wanted a short answer, so
Okay.
I'll stop there.
Well, the contrary, on the corollary to that is, if you are privileged to serve in Congress, what are your 3 priorities?
My 3 priorities are putting people back to work. So an economic plan. I think the American Jobs Act is a good step in the right direction. We need to get that through Congress, but it's a first step. I think we need to go further. And it doesn't speak to things like access to credit for small business, which creates 85% of the jobs in the country. There's some ways that we can go further with that. The second is around education. I think our long-term investment in education and long-term competitiveness is key, and right now we know our schools are crumbling. We're not doing all the right things there. And the third is around renewables and alternative energy. It's a critical issue, and we need to be investing there.
Stacey, we're political junkies, so let's talk politics here. You surprised a lot of observers by raising more than $200,000 in a brief period between when you announced and September 30th. How do you plan to win this race?
Well, we plan to win it, one, by being financially strong and viable. We're getting support. I mean, we're so fortunate to be getting support up and down the district because of our message of this marriage of strong progressive values married with job creation. It's just such a key issue right now. So we're doing it by being on the road and in the district. I'm taking lots of trips up and down the beautiful North Coast with lots of time behind the wheel and lots of time with, right now, folks that are in the Democratic Party who are key influentials in the, have spheres of influence among the voter population. We'll be in engaged dialogue with as many folks as possible, and hopefully using some unique ways to do that. We actually did a telephone town hall to kick off the campaign where we reached out to over 75,000 voters using just telephone technology. We ended up having over 10,000 people with us on the line for over an hour discussing issues, what's broken in Washington, what's on people's mind. So my hope is that this campaign will be about an engaged discussion around solutions and what we can be doing to put our country back on track. And that through that engagement, people will hear my voice, will also sense how much I deeply care about these issues. This is not a career move. This is an offer and service. I would like to be helping solve these problems for our country, and I care very, very deeply about the people in our district and across this country. And so that, I think, is what's garnering the support we've seen financially, also to run a very strong and smart race.
Stacey Lawson, Democratic candidate for Congress. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good luck with your campaign. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Jeff Lerman of Lerman Law Partners in San Rafael specializes in real estate law and also runs the Investor Education Institute, which offers seminars and webinars on many issues of real estate law. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, as you know, Jeff, many homeowners in Marin are what we call underwater, and that is that they owe more on their mortgage than their house is currently worth. The national average of underwater is about 25%, Marin currently 16%, but still that's a 5% increase from the third quarter last year. So do you find that banks are willing to modify loans, including reducing the principal amount?
Well, reducing the principal amount is always the holy grail of loan modification. It's the thing that lenders are most reluctant to work with you on. But we do find that if you approach it correctly for the right type of loan, the right type of situation, that loan modifications are getting done. But that's the operative consideration. There are a lot of people out there who may need a loan modification, but every situation is different. Every situation has to be looked at on its own unique facts. And so one of the things that's important when somebody is thinking about doing this is really to talk to somebody who has some experience in the area so they can help them make sure that this is a path that makes sense for them to pursue so they don't waste a lot of time, money, and effort going down this road only to find out it leads to a dead end.
Mm-hmm. They could spend a lot of time on hold at a bank listening to really bad music.
The problem is that there's the lot of time on hold is an unfortunate reality of the situation. The lenders are just so overwhelmed with the work out there, the volume, and so that's part of the process. Unfortunately, the reality.
Are we seeing more short sales as well here, Marin? And what exactly is a short sale?
Short sale is anytime a property is sold for less than the cumulative amount owed against it, then that is a short sale. The net profit after you deduct all of the sale costs, if the net profit is less than the accumulated debt against it, that's a short sale. And yes, in California, the law changed recently for the benefit of the homeowner, so that it's now better for them to do a short sale. And the number of short sales have gone up. The percentage of troubled loans that are going through the short sale process has gone up, and more people are taking a look at that as an exit strategy. And it's something that everybody actually who is in this predicament really should understand and consider.
Now, what about strategic defaults? I know a number of people who owe more on their house than it's worth, and they aren't out of work, they're not broke, but they're walking away from that home purely on a financial basis. It just doesn't pencil out anymore.
Right, and that is a classic definition of a strategic default. Strategic default is a default where somebody decides that they are going to default on their loan, not because they can't afford it, but because it no longer makes economic sense for them to essentially throw good money after bad. People who are in a situation today where they are seriously underwater, say 25% or more, in today's economy, they are looking at the prospect of 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years before they are actually going to be back in the black on their equity on their home. And so they're taking a look at that and looking at where they are in their lives and saying, you know what, this just does not make sense anymore. The strategic default option is a real option. It is a loaded, it's a loaded issue, and the media has spent a fair amount of time talking about it. And it's a little unfair because they're taking an issue which is already emotionally charged and very difficult for people for a lot of different reasons, and they're injecting a lot of other issues into it, which, in my opinion, really are I guess it's good for a spirited debate and discussion, but people already feel bad enough about even having to be in that position without having to inject what I think are some of these morality issues which really don't have a place in it. But they're there. They're issues which should be considered, but people should look at the whole strategic default option, which is a multifaceted issue, a multifaceted exit strategy, and deceptively complicated. People think, gee, all I got to do is throw my keys and walk away. It's not that simple.
And give us a couple of the issues that they face in terms of damage to your credit, potential unexpected tax liabilities on phantom capital gains.
Yeah, those are two very good issues, and because the whole impetus is an economic issue, it's really the economic drivers really do need to be part of the consideration. The law in this area is changing, and it has changed quite a bit. When it comes to the tax issues, you're looking at both state and federal tax issues, and fortunately there's law on the books which is helpful to the homeowner today in terms of forgiveness, but those laws do have sunset clauses, and so what you need to do, what everybody needs to do if they're thinking about this, is to consult their tax advisor on this and make sure they understand those tax issues before they make that decision. In terms of the credit impact, it's obviously an important decision. That's something that's going to take a while to repair, but also that's something that is a changing. It's changing with the law, the economy, and everything else. And what we're looking at now, depending on how they go about doing this, they can look at being in a position where they can go back out there and get a new home loan within a matter of a couple of years if they do it correctly. So again, this is something where if you're thinking about this, you should talk to a credit repair expert, somebody who really knows what they're talking about, get some good referrals, and understand what that's going to look like. Those are some of the options. but you also do have to go through a more in-depth analysis, not just what you said, but also taking a look at, okay, now what am I going to do in terms of where I'm going to live next, and factor in those costs, and do, there's a real formula that you go through. And when I teach this stuff, we actually walk people through these various issues through my education company, and we talk to people about how they really can go through the strategic default decision-making process, do it methodically, step by step, and by the end of the process, the math will typically tell them what to do. And it's a nice way to get out of the emotional aspect of it and really break it down and analyze it more as a business decision, which is really where these people who are considering strategic defaults end up.
Is there material that you have or that you could refer people to that they could get a handle on this? Because it sounds kind of complicated.
Yeah, I do have, in addition to our law practice, I have an education company that Peter mentioned at the top of the segment. It's, the website is ieisonline.com, Investor Education Institute Series, ieisonline.com. And at that website, you'll see we have a home study course on strategic defaults called Before You Walk Away. And what the course does is it takes people by the hand and basically spoon feeds all of the information they need, gives them all the checklists, the forms. We have speakers on the call who are CPAs to walk into the tax issues, credit repair people, the lawyer talking about the legal aspects, and we hit it from all different angles.
Mm-hmm. And is there a lot of demand for that information these days, Jeff?
Yeah, there is, and but interestingly, from what I've been reading in the newspaper, when this whole strategic default option first broke, maybe about a year and a half ago, it was all the media was taking a look at. They were taking a look at. But from what I have read, surprisingly, not as many people are defaulting as they feared would take advantage of the strategic default option.
Jeff Lerman, great to talk with you today. Thanks for joining us on Marin Voices and Views.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.